Few developments have helped government agencies innovate faster or more effectively than the evolution of the cloud. I'm Wyatt Cash with Scoop News Group, and here to talk about the cloud's impact on public sector and how that's fostered innovation is Bill Daus, Branch Chief of Research Directorate Systems Branch at the National Science Foundation. Bill, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Wyatt.
Let me start by asking, how has the cloud enabled NSF to really make significant improvements in the services it delivers to the public?
Thanks. So we have a lot of improvements that we've made. Most are probably the textbook ones. NSF was running a data center out of our building in Alexandria, Virginia. So the way things that were hosted on-prem changed a lot. The biggest thing, though, for us was we used our cloud migration to be a catalyst for all of our improvements in the architecture, as well as our processes. So we broke down all of our monoliths, all the things into microservices, and got a lot of the rewards that a lot of people get from doing that, being able to independently deliver things and just increasing that service velocity, delivering enhancements, requests, new features. And we paired that with our DevOps processes and our CI/CD pipelines that we created. We had pretty low adoption, but as we moved to the cloud, we made sure that all of our applications were using these processes. So we got to do things faster. Also, part of re-architecting, we did everything in containers and leveraged a Kubernetes architecture on AWS. So this really increased our application resilience and our operational uptime. Prior to moving to the cloud, almost every release we did, we incurred downtime on the weekend, and we had a lot of developers up late at night on the weekends. We still have some of that, but now we're doing it in a way that it's seamless to all the end users. So we have things like research.gov, and we want to make sure that anybody who's going to work on their proposal to NSF or do a business transaction can get to that system any time of day, anywhere in the world. And when we were in our on-prem data center, that just wasn't really possible. So we like to see this as just being a better steward of the resources and the facilities and other things. Speaking of which, we've also noticed we've had a really big reduced burden in maintenance because we adopted that Kubernetes architecture. Our footprint and the number of servers that we have to maintain has reduced significantly. And since we are doing a lot of things with proposals and with awards and running panels as part of our mission, just the whole scaling aspect of the cloud is so much more conducive to what we're doing. We see big deadlines, and our biggest deadline is the Graduate Research Fellowship Program, which has 16,000 applicants roughly every year. Well, we don't need that application to be running 24/7 at the volume needed for that. And so in the cloud, we can scale up, we can scale down, we can turn things off, turn them on. And again, it's kind of a textbook benefit of the cloud, but it's just been really huge. And the last big significant improvement we've had is just having those cloud native technologies in place, like S3, CloudFront, other things you really can't do with a single data center in the DC metropolitan area.
Well, let's take me back just a little bit, and can you describe a little bit more? What were the primary technology challenges that your agency faced in delivering services to the public that made the cloud so attractive in the first place?
Sure. So as I said, we had some big monoliths. So we had very legacy applications, one of which was created in 1994, running on very old hardware in the building. So this became really hard to upgrade, patch, find people who even knew how to do that. And then also just being able to do releases. It was a big effort to coordinate things in a way across those people and teams to release enhancements. So as we broke that monolith down and made it as part of our cloud migration, we were able to then take that technology and now have concurrent development environments and have multiple Scrum teams running on it. So breaking that down, though, was a big challenge because everything was very tightly integrated to the database. We had to use things like the strangler pattern to get things out and into containers. So it was a very big challenge based on where we came from, but we ended up in a really great place.
And then can you point to a couple of examples of how the public has been better served, some outcomes, if you will, that the clouds allowed NSF to achieve compared to where you were even a couple of years ago?
Yeah. So the biggest one, I don't know if anybody here has seen the pictures of the black hole at the middle of our galaxy. So we just released that, I guess last month. But in 2019, we had the first picture of the M87 black hole go out. And that was released on our web servers on nsf.gov in our data center. And that event was a huge challenge for us. We had to scale up the VMs on-prem. We were having network issues. It was not a disaster, but a really big challenge. And people were getting pretty slow page loads and response times when they were trying to get those images. So fast forward to 2022, we have our new website on beta.nsf.gov completely running on our AWS architecture, and we have it integrated with CloudFront. So we had way higher than our normal daily page loads, but actually faster performance because of the distributed way that CloudFront works. So just an amazing way that we were running something. We had very little, it was basically a blip on our radar in terms of service, but the public got all that imagery, all that news. That media event went off really well. It was just a huge improvement over a few years. We've had a few other things, just being able to use things like S3 EFS that have the encryption in transit built in. A few years ago, we were using on-prem SANs, NFS mounts, and we were really able to secure and lock down our machines more by just integrating with those cloud native technologies. So big improvements have been made, and hopefully the public has been enjoying our website and our systems with those kind of things.
No, I remember seeing that picture when it was released, and the black hole was very impressive, but how the cloud helped you bring that to the public also sounds very impressive. Lastly, what one or two key lessons or surprises maybe did you experience moving to the cloud? And how else do you plan to adopt additional cloud services going forward?
Sure. So the biggest surprise for us, as we were breaking down those monoliths and our legacy applications, we had planned to incrementally migrate a lot over. So we're very agile. We like to deliver things in sprints. And we had the idea that every month or so, we would be moving a new piece up to the cloud. Well, as we did performance testing, this hybrid scenario, running things like our database on-prem and microservices out in the cloud, we realized that we were having an increased latency. So we established a direct connection, which is something I would advise most agencies to do. But then also we had to be more strategic about the pieces that we incrementally moved and when we moved them, so that pieces that were calling each other were moved in groups and bunches. The other thing I want to point out, which is more of a positive surprise, was how quickly we could roll things back in the cloud versus on-prem. So our on-prem process to deploy things onto our legacy hardware was fairly tedious, took sometimes hours to do. With our new architecture, we're able to do it in minutes and do blue-green deployments and things, and it really reduced the risk of our releases. So it's kind of just a positive surprise that when we run into issues, we had a really quick rollback plan and strategy, which allow us to have that great operational uptime, but also push things out faster because we knew we had a lower risk of doing that. Our next steps, we're going to be embracing some more Azure services and moving some pieces of Windows. A lot of things I talked about are in AWS right now. So we're going to start an Azure presence as well, but also looking to integrate with more of the low code solutions out in the cloud. Things like Salesforce, we're experimenting with things like Power Apps to get our citizen developers out there. And then how can we tie those into the transactional data we maybe have in AWS and other places. So got a lot of things to come, and hopefully it'll be exciting as an adventure as we've had the last few years.
Well, it definitely sounds like exciting times for the IT department at the National Science Foundation. Bill Daus, thank you so much for taking a few minutes to share what you're working on and some of the things that you've learned with our audience, and really appreciate your insights and observations today.
Thank you, Wyatt. Thanks for having me.